Life hacks, leadership tips, stories, and fun. It's time for Two Guys on Stuff with Michael Edwards and Tom Tobin. They're executives, entrepreneurs, and great friends. And this is a conversation about values-based, purpose-driven leadership that can transform you, your organization, and the world. Now, let's hear what stuff the guys are talking about this week.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys on Stuff. This is going to be a two-parter as we close out 2025 and blow into 2026. I'm Tom Tobin, and this is my great friend, Michael Edwards. Michael, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing fantastic, Tom. It's the end of the year and all of the fun things that go along with that.
What do you got planned for Christmas? Anything big?
Yeah, so we should have most of the kids here, and my mother-in-law will be here. So it should be a, kind of a nice house full of people for Christmas, which will be exactly opposite of Thanksgiving. So I'm pretty excited about it. And, Sherry, for those of you who don't know, both Tom's wife and my wife are named Sherry. My Sherry, Christmas has exploded on the first floor of this house, and it is just absolutely beautiful. I've never seen a Christmas tree decorated the way that she decorates it.
That is awesome. Yeah, we're staying here, but our kids are all coming home. So we're going to have the pitter patter of grandkids' footsteps. Well, at least one set of steps. Miley still isn't crawling yet, but Ruth is full into Christmas. She is loving the presents.
That's
She's
awesome.
3 years old. So I'm so excited. And this is going to be the year that she gets her little tricycle. So we love having the kids here. Yeah, we love having the kids here.
And, we'll probably get to celebrate here in South Texas wearing shorts and flip-flops.
Exactly. Yes. Last week we just put a pickleball court in at our house. And so we were playing pickleball one day and we were in shorts and t-shirts. And 2 days later, it was 40 degrees and we were playing in jackets and long pants. So it just give it
That's
24
awesome.
hours and it will change.
Yep.
So, I'm excited. I'm also excited about our episode today and the way that it's evolved and having people ask us, look, do you practice what you preach? Or do you guys just get up there and Google something about P&Ls or whatever and start talking to people about it? And I think if you listen to more than one episode, you'll know that what we do is what we've done in the past. But I think it's exciting today to talk about what we're doing now in terms of our conversations, and what we've been having in our conversations is something that we're doing going into the new year. And so I'm looking forward to interviewing you this morning and then flipping the script and you interviewing me. So, as we talk about that, I'd really like to know, what does 2026 look like for you? Where are you going? And I know you've got an introduction to a very new app that you just created that's getting ready to go on the market. That's some beta testing right now. So with that, tell me what you're doing in 2026, but specifically tell me about JobblyGo. I love saying the name. It sounds really cool. So I want to know more about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a super exciting year. I'm very, very excited about it. And, there's really three big buckets that I've got going on right now. One of them, and I've actually fallen in love with this, it's a serving the community kind of role where I'm leading the Economic Development Foundation in my community. And what's most exciting about this is getting to work with all of the great people. I've always had an affinity for public relations and government affairs, and have always served in that capacity on the other side as a representative of large corporations. But that's been so exciting, that the prospect of help growing the community in a very smart way, preserving this wonderful hill country way of life. The second bucket is the Edwards Advisory Group, and Edwards Advisory Group was really founded in 2020 as the Edwards Group of Texas. Early this year, we broke off into the Edwards Advisory Group, separate company, and we're really starting to gain traction. And, in a nutshell, Edwards Advisory Group helps prepare companies for the adoption of AI. And we've got some exciting things coming up next year with the Edwards Advisory Group. And then the last one, and the one I'm most excited about, Tom, is JobblyGo. If you remember, before we started recording again, I was working for a large organization, leading the employee experience organization. And
Right.
one thing after another with the economy and all kinds of evolution at the company, I was included in a reduction in force. First time in my life, 30 some odd year career.
Yeah, quite literally worked your way out of a job,
Yeah, we did AI
created
so
the
well that
structure that AI'd you out of there.
yeah, yeah. So I could laugh about it now.
Yeah, I know that comes with a little bit of pain, but quite frankly, I think that's one of the things is being an entrepreneur comes with pain. And
Absolutely, it
I,
does.
I also think that's one of the things that's been interesting is to hear your story that I admire is you've never forsaken your entrepreneurial spirit and said, well, I work within an organization, so I can't do anything really. You've never lived at the result of being in a formal organization. It's not life wasn't being done to you. You took it by the reins and then you exercise your entrepreneurial spirit through the work that you do.
Yep.
And so even while you were working your regular job, you were able to create these things on the side that now I begin to see the genesis was when you were creating them. And it goes to show entrepreneurs that you don't have to quit what you're doing just because you want to pursue entrepreneurship. You can do it within the context of what you're doing now. And all those seeds that you planted early on are now coming to fruition. So I wanted to point that out. Number one, for the listeners, but number two, just to commend you because I really have seen that happen and in real time, and it's been wonderful to watch. So now tell me about JobblyGo. Like that, I don't know. I just love the name. How did that happen?
Yeah.
What is it?
So, as part of this reduction in force, I needed to find a job.
Mhm.
So, I started working with some executive headhunters, placement firms, things like that, and found that I wasn't getting the volume. I mean, finding a job is sales. It's you got to keep that pipeline full. You've got to keep, 200, 300 prospects in that pipeline all the time, and
Right.
wasn't getting the volume of interview or applications out there. So one other thing too is, first time with Texas unemployment, which the state of Texas, they do a really good job. I can't believe I'm saying this about a government agency. The state of Texas really does a good job of handling that situation. And in many cases, people are destitute and need money, and the state does a really good job with that. So hats off to Texas. They do a lot of things well. But one of the requirements is when they ask for it, you have to send them a report of your job search activity. And they've got a very specific format that you've got to use. So, I'm thinking, gosh, this is a mess. I was tracking it on a spreadsheet and all of the activity. And, Microsoft Excel doesn't remind you to follow up with company X, Y, and Z. So I got to thinking about what could I do to make this experience better. And one of the things was I needed a CRM. So I started penciling down on some paper, what that CRM might look like. And then I got to talking to a lot of folks who are in the talent acquisition business, and they were talking about the need for tailored resumes. And to get through the ATS system, they needed to have a high ATS score. ATS is applicant tracking system.
Okay.
So, if you're trying to get 200 to 300 applications in your pipeline and you're trying to write a tailored resume and a cover letter to each one of those, that's going to take you all day long. And
Mhm.
what's interesting is the that all of the executive recruiters and folks like that will tell you is you should only spend about 10% of your time applying for jobs. You need to spend the rest of the time networking, which I totally agree with.
Okay.
But so that 10% of my time is now much more important because I've got to get all those things done. So the need for that special ATS compliant or scored resume and cover letter was very, very important. So I went out to my LinkedIn audience and I said, hey, what are your top two issues as it relates to finding a job? And one of them was keeping track of the applications, and the other one was the resume, getting the custom resume. I'm like, okay, we're on the same page.
So
So
if I'm just listening to this right now, like you should be writing this down because if you're looking for a job or you may be in need of helping somebody else find a job, maybe it's young people, you should be writing this down because what Michael is saying is dead on true. And he's just experienced that. I think that's one of the greatest values of listening to this podcast in particular as you're going into 2026 this isn't something that just popped on your dashboard, Michael, and you found an app that did it. This is something that you had to custom build. And so, but keep going. But I just wanted to point that out. I think that's critical.
Yeah, and the important thing is I solved a problem. A lot of
Hmm.
times we talk with entrepreneurs that want to do something that they just dreamed of doing, which is okay if it pays the bills. But part of that dream needs to be you've got to solve a problem for somebody.
Right.
So this started out solving a problem for me, which it did a pretty darn good job. And as I saw how well it worked, I'm like, dang, this is cool. And I just kept iterating and iterating and iterating. And by the way, I wrote this app myself through the help of a couple of different AI tools. So I'm not a coder. I was many, many, many years ago, and I don't even believe the programming language exists anymore. But I used AI to help develop this package, and so after actually it was kind of fun because I've got JobblyGo up on one screen and I've got all of my job application stuff on the other screen. And as part of the testing process, I'm, putting real live applications through the
Hmm.
system and I'm starting to get interviews. I'm like, wow, this is pretty darn cool.
Right.
So all of that work, getting everything ready to go, you want to get an MVP, a minimum viable product together and get it out there. I could sit here in my office and build this really cool thing and take years to build it and would be absolutely perfect when I got it out the door. But you really want to ship your MVP so you can get some feedback and make it even better. So
Yeah.
uh, on Monday, was today's Saturday, so 6 days ago, I invited my LinkedIn audience to participate in beta testing. And basically it's free. They got the premium tier free for 3 months so they can provide me some good feedback. And I gotta tell you, the feedback was amazing. I was getting screenshots and bubbles and things like that. And I haven't worked on it today. So in 5 days, we were able to make significant UI changes. We were able to make some fine tuning to the AI generation prompting. And the tool that we started out with on Monday is under the hood, very different than the tool that you'll wake up to today. So kind of a cool
But
experiment.
Michael, didn't that hurt your feelings to have people provide you critical feedback about your baby?
Listen, feedback is love. I tell everybody, feedback is love. But the people that are participating in the beta, one of them I used
Hmm.
to work with many, many years ago, and it just happens that we both live in San Antonio near each other. And she's in this business, so she has an amazing amount of experience. But they were not mean by any means. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think of Jimmy Fallon reading the mean tweets. It wasn't
Yeah.
mean at all. It was really, really cool feedback.
But
So no,
that's my point is that they're not, people, entrepreneurs, people that are starting their own business need to receive feedback. I always said, if you're not talking about my wife or children or grandchildren, then I'm fine. We'll level set it there. But good, positive, not necessarily positive in terms of everything's great, keep going, but it's still positive feedback if they're giving you true constructive criticism. And I'm not talking about Facebook pot shots. I'm
right.
talking about, hey, this is what I would do, or I'm seeing this, or what if it did this? Those types of things are critical for you to be able to then capture the population that you want to work with.
Right.
I was watching a video the other night. There's another podcast. We don't watch other podcasts for content, but I do like to review other podcasts in this area to see if we're online. If we're in line with what other people are saying, if it's consistent, are we way out there, or if there's something that we're missing that may not be something. Well, are we not doing something that can be helpful to our listeners? And this guy was being interviewed. He's in his mid 30s. He's a multimillionaire. He's an entrepreneur. He has something like a little over 80 different entrepreneurial activities that he is engaged in or is currently engaged in. And he said, the world is like a giant ocean, and I'm sitting there fishing. And he said, until you cast, you don't know what you're going to get. And he said, and then you adjust based on what you're casting. And he gave a neat story. I'll spare you everyone the neat story, but it really made me stop and think about that's, sometimes you cast and it's a dud, and you do something to modify that lure, or you do something else, and then you cast again and see what you catch. And I think that's what's cool is about your beta testing is that you captured invaluable information from people and can make a very quick iteration. I mean, you're talking 5 days, and to have it open up with a very different engine than it started with in 5 days shows agility too. And so, yeah, keep going. So now we're at the point where it's new engine, and tell me about it from there.
Yeah. So my goal is to have this ready for prime time by January 2nd. So it's important to get through this beta testing between now and then. And we've got the holidays and things like that. So I'm literally making real-time changes. And I know it goes against all of the principles of software development and all that good stuff. But I am, as I get feedback, I'll evaluate the feedback. I'll figure out, is it something that is important? Prioritize it. And in most cases with the feedback from my beta testers, I would actually make the changes right away. So, they give me the feedback at 10 a.m. and by 10:10, it's done. So that beta process is super important. And behind the scenes, while this is going on, I'm also putting together my go-to-market strategy. So, I've already got kind of the high level stuff, deadlines, milestones, things like that. But now I have to fine tune and say, all right, on January 2nd, this is what the marketing campaign looks like. On January 3rd, here's what we're doing. So having to get much more specific. And in our last episode, we talked about all of the things that you need to be doing at this time of year, developing your 2026 forecast and budget and all of those things. Those are things that I actually did in the last couple of weeks as well. So all of the things that we've been preaching in the last several weeks of how to start your business is what I did.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So for the people that have asked us, so you guys really do this, or do you think you know about it? Listen to a couple of episodes and then listen to this one and the next one, and you'll see this is stuff that we're actually doing. And I think that's what's cool is entrepreneurialism is not something that it is something that you can learn in terms of the processes, but it's also who you are. Like there are people that are very risk averse, and that's fine. If you're risk averse, then I want my surgeon to be risk averse.
Right.
Okay. He may be doing a risky surgery, but I don't want him going outside the ballpark on my surgery. I want my banker to be risk averse. And there are people that have those roles and they are risk averse. But if you're not, walk through this as Michael's going through it and look at what he's doing versus what we've talked about, not in contrast, but in comparison to what we're talking about, and see that these are all important aspects of being an entrepreneur. So in order for you to go live, Michael, what do you have to do between now and then?
Quite honestly, it's probably ready for prime time right now. There are a couple of AI development tweaks that I want to make. So right now, the goal is to have an ATS score of 90 or better. And that ATS score includes keywords and skills and things like that match the job description. And the things that I've been putting into the system have generated a 70, 76 score. And then the tool allows you to make manual edits to get that score above 90. So, there's a thing about prompting. You can only prompt so far, and then you have to do some different things. So my under the hood goal right now is to have the generative AI get that score above 90. So there's really no intervention. I'll still do some UI tweaks, but everybody who knows me knows I'm a huge Apple fan, and the Apple ecosystem is just second to none in my mind. In fact, kind of a funny story, at the EDF, I have a Windows laptop, and it's a beautiful Windows laptop, and Windows is fine and fantastic, but it's not Mac OS. So I've got a tech support custom GPT that asks all kinds of tech support questions but yesterday I was sitting in my office, and minor things like in Windows world, it's Control C, Control V to copy paste. Well, in Apple world, it's not. It's Command C and Command V to copy paste. So I asked my custom GPT to tell me how to make my Windows machine like a Mac. And it spit out a bunch of different things to do. And I'm like, I've got to download software. I've got to download drivers. This is nuts. So transferring that type of experience over to my users, I want them to have to intervene as little as possible. So we'll do some adjustments to make sure that the generative AI gets it to the way the user wants it without the user having to do anything. But to circle back to your original question, it's probably ready right now.
Okay.
One of the things, well, there's a couple of things that I learned along the way, and I've never developed a commercial software product before. I've developed a bunch of stuff for internal use, but there are legal things. You need to have terms and conditions. You need to have a privacy policy. You need to have a credit card provider or a payment provider.
Right.
So your customers can sign up. You have to have something to manage subscriptions. So there's all kinds of other little things that you've got to kind of figure out along the way. So I really feel like this tool is as good as any of the super, big software companies can put out.
Well, let's face it, a lot of places are putting software out, and we're practically beta users from the beginning.
Exactly.
Because if you do any kind of gaming, you get weekly updates to the gaming that you do, whether it's World of Warcraft or just about anything else. So they're weekly updating servers. The software that we buy now is constantly being, updated with new revisions. And so I think that's just become natural. When this all first started happening and people started buying computers, you didn't have these constant ongoing updates. It was just you bought software, it had been beaten to death, and then it either worked or it didn't.
Yep.
And now I think it's just natural. So I wouldn't beat yourself up about having revisions. I think that, being able to go live, you've done your beta testing, and now you're just going to be coming out with new revisions, updates, just like any other software would do. And I'm going to venture to say you're over 40 and you're using AI properly.
Yeah, right.
You're not just using it like a Google questionnaire, which I think is cool. So as we're thinking about coming to an end soon, there's a couple things that in my mind I still would like an answer for. One is, what is JobblyGo? I know that you've walked through the process of developing it, and I think I know what it is, but if you had 3 minutes in an elevator, you're going to explain to me what it was, or if I was going to tell other people about it, what is it, and who are your target audiences, or what is your target audience?
Yeah, so love the question. And JobblyGo is your job seeking command center. So think of it as the hub for the different things that you've got to do to find a job. It's a CRM, so you can manage all of the contacts and applications just as any, sales type CRM it would handle. It's a generative AI tool to get you a resume and a cover letter that gets you recognized by a talent acquisition specialist or recruiter. So it's a tool to get you into the door.
Okay. And so from being a CRM, I don't want to then Google CRMs. I want to look at this as a very specialized CRM, one that it has a specific task. Now, it probably has some multiple legs that you could utilize it for, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a specific CRM that helps expedite the process for applications, getting in front of people, and job seekers, correct?
Yeah. So think about going back to my original, you need to have a pipeline of 200 or 300 applications in there. The CRM helps you manage those applications. So let's say today I applied for the general manager of McDonald's. And so I go through the whole AI process. It builds my resume, builds my cover letter. Then it enters all of that information into the CRM and schedules follow-ups. So, and I can set default. So, a 2-day follow-up and a 5-day follow-up. So when I log into JobblyGo in the morning, I've got a dashboard, and the dashboard says, here's all your activity today. Here's what you need to do today. And it'll say, call Tom at Tobin team, call hiring manager at McDonald's, whatever. So it helps you keep track of all of the things that you need to do to make sure that you stand up, rise above the rest of the crowd. Again,
so you got your own little pocket manager, your own little pocket advisor.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
And,
okay.
And one of the important things is you've got to stand out. There are tens of thousands of people looking for jobs. And in talking to a lot of the talent acquisition leaders, they've got more volume in applications than they can deal with. So you've got to stand out. So as part of that is routine follow-ups.
Mhm.
knowing the decision maker. So another iteration that we're going to make after we get out of the beta, this might be 2.0 or 3.0, is actually searching the hiring manager or somebody in your network that can help you get in the door. So that's coming down the pike. But anyway, the CRM helps you make sure that you're on top of your game, following up, doing what you say you will do.
All right, fantastic. And so, how do I access it? If I'm interested, if I'm looking for a job, especially going into 26, there's a lot of people are probably going like, do I want another year like 25,
Right.
or do I want to make a change? Is now time to make a change? How do I access JobblyGo? How do I get engaged? Tell me about that part of it.
Yeah, and so here's something that's important. So many of the analysts, economic analysts, labor analysts, are predicting an improved job market in 2026. So better than we
Hmm.
had this year. That's good news. And many of the companies, they start hiring in January. So, that's when, some of the golden handcuffs come off and many of the bonuses are paid out. So people are actually starting to become active. So that's why we are launching on January 5th. I think I might have said January 2nd before, but it's actually January 5th was the official launch. So how do you sign up? You go to jobblygo.com, JOBBLY.com, and go through the sign up process. Now there's a free tier. That free tier you can use just to test it out. You can do 3 resumes and cover letters to see how cool it is. And then you can go monthly, quarterly, or annually on your subscription. And, hopefully it only takes you a month to do that. So you can sign up for monthly, but most of the folks are going with the quarterly because, it takes 3 to 6 months to find a job now.
Okay.
But
You know, I'm even thinking
jobblygo.com.
I'm even thinking about this from a business perspective. You might consider a commercial version of this where if I want to help people find jobs and someone wants to pay me to help them find jobs, that could be a whole other business. I could be a professional job seeker and help people and help them manage their dashboard, right?
Well, oddly enough, Tom, I have done a ton of research into recruiting firms over the last couple of weeks to kind of figure out what might be the next segment.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay,
Yep.
cool. And just full disclosure, we have not talked about that, but that is so cool to hear.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. All right. Anything else, Michael?
I got to tell you, this has been a lot of fun. It has also been a great exercise in my managing myself. You've heard me say managing yourself is one of the hardest people to manage,
Mhm.
because I've got the economic development foundation, I've got the consulting business, and now I've got the software business. So I am more reliant than ever on my productivity tools. And this is when things when you're starting to get into the margins of your bandwidth, it's time to really double down on the systems that have worked for you. So I am, super heavy into my time and task management system right now. I am super deliberate about block scheduling right now. I am super deliberate about the distractions right now to make sure that I don't, I keep all of the plates spinning because that's really important right now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, look, as we close up, Michael, how do people get a hold of you first?
Yeah. So if you want to sign up or test drive JobblyGo, go right to jobblygo.com. If you want to reach me with any kind of questions, comments, or concerns, it's mde@edwardsgrouptx.com. And you can see what we're doing at the Edwards Advisory Group at edwardsadvisorygroup.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, hey, as we close, I want to say this. As we end part one and we go into 2026, I want to thank Michael. Michael is not. We're not just colleagues here. Michael and I are really good friends. He and his wife Sherry are in our life group. We're what we refer to each other as 2 a.m. friends, the people that we go to. And Michael, I will never forget the day that we sat there over a hamburger I'm blanking on the name of it, years ago. And Michael and his wife Sherry were sitting in church, and my wife Sherry she is the outreach for our
Yeah.
family. I'm an extrovert, but this day I very specifically said that I did not want my bubble burst. I just wanted to sit there quietly before church started. And I know that doesn't sound like what you should do at church, but that's where I was at. I needed my bubble, and I wanted to just be left alone. I went to the bathroom and I came back, and my Sherry had burst my bubble, and she's like, "Oh, this is Michael and Sherry, and this is what they do." And I will be forever grateful for that time, Michael, that my Sherry burst my bubble and introduced us as couples, and all that has passed since then. And I am so excited for JobblyGo, for you and Sherry, to see where God takes this into 2026. And my prayer for 26 is that you are absolutely more successful than you could ever imagine, and that JobblyGo is a blessing to all those that use it and help them find employment so that they can provide for their family. And I just appreciate you as a friend and brother. And I'm looking forward to more podcasts in 26. Wish you guys a very blessed Christmas. And again, I just want to thank you.
Oh, thank you, Tom. And your story, I guess that's our story, right?
Right.
It speaks to how what could be just a, casual interaction with somebody can change your life. So
yeah, truly.
So thank you.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, so this concludes part 1 of our end of the year episode as we go into 2026. This is Two Guys on Stuff. I'm Tom Tobin with my good friend and co-host partner, Michael Edwards. And we wish you a very blessed Christmas and a happy new year, successful entrepreneurialism, and stay tuned for part 2. And hopefully we can learn from that as well.
We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Two Guys on Stuff. Tune in next week as Tom and Michael talk more about leadership stuff, life stuff, helpful stuff, and maybe even your stuff. Until then, keep your stories fun